GAGDC. We serve our community. We are GAGDC. Revitalize our neighborhoods. Development is educate our youth. GAGDC. Hey, what else do they do at GAGDC? Promote and provide health and wellness, please. Come through, check us out at GAGDC. Oh yeah, I'm definitely coming through.
We're going to start off with just welcoming any new partners. I know that typically we go around, we introduce ourselves. But again, I want to be mindful of our time. We have a full agenda, and I'm very excited for everyone that will be presenting today. So if it's your first time joining one of our AGNN meetings, if you can just raise your hand and we can just have you quickly introduce yourself. I am looking around and it looks like we have a lot of partners that have joined us, but going a second time, if there's any newcomers who would like to introduce yourselves. Awesome, great. So I guess I'll get started then. Just a quick reminder, please sign in the chat, put your name and the name of your organization for attendance. I did also put the agenda in the chat for anyone who would like to follow along, but I will pass it on to Dominica from Become to get us started, and I will reshare the agenda in the chat for anyone who did not get it.
All right, so we have some exciting news to share about a report that we just put out in collaboration with True Believers and GAGDC. And so we're going to be diving into that today. And Shan is going to kick us off.
Hello, everybody. I hope you can hear me. I'm Chantel Jameson, the Collaborative Impact Innovator for Become. And I'm really excited to talk about this report because it's so rich with information that is straight from members of the Auburn Gresham community. It is not a single word in here that's coming from folks who do not live here, work here, have done work here, and that's just really, really great. And that's something that's really rare and authentic when it comes to people making decisions for African-American people in general. So the Auburn Gresham CRCT report, Culturally Responsive Community Transformation Report, again, was conducted by Become in partnership with the GADDC, as well as True Believers Community Connections. And it outlines a community-driven vision for healing, empowerment, and growth. This report was rooted in deep community engagement. We spoke to more than 150 residents, organizations, and stakeholders of Auburn Gresham who had some form of a deep connection with the community. Some of them living here for as long as 60 years. So despite decades of trauma, disenfranchisement, other powers that be in systems that, coming in and making decisions on behalf of the people, this report reveals the richness, the dreams, the thriving ideas of people. And it centers on community resilience, hope, and particularly one that sentiments around youth. So the reason why we're here, what we're going to focus on is we're going to introduce the 6 CRCT priority areas, which came from the conversations that we had with the residents. So as a result of those conversations, we identified 6 priority areas that they focused on. And so we're going to present those, and we're going to compare those areas with the 2016 Quality of Life Plan. And also, in the report, we're going to highlight the fact that residents, through their stories, they were able to dream again. A lot of times you lose hope, and they didn't. Like, there's still a lot of hope. And also, we hope to inspire collective action and system innovation by the end of this report. So a little bit about Become. Most of you all know about Become, but Become has been around for more than 12 years in multiple capacities, working with the community members and organizations in Auburn Gresham. We have very deep relationships with residents, nonprofits, and local leaders. And our partnership with the GAGDC and the Courage to Love Collaborative are just a couple of the many partnerships that we have that highlight our work. So, a little bit about CRCT, aka Culturally Responsive Community Transformation. This is the belief that the community has the answers, no one else. And in speaking with 150 plus residents through what we named Open Community Chats, we spoke to them at gatherings, strategy sessions, innovation meetings. It was just a variety of ways that we interviewed them, and not just to collect data, but to give them a voice. And so the residents co-created solutions around youth, safety, economy, and care. And so we're just going to go a little bit deeper into that.
All right. So for the first part, the one that was most important was the youth. That showed up in a lot of different ways across different generations, across different ways of talking about youth. People brought up youth in both negative and positive ways. People brought up youth in talking about the violence, and talking about crime, and talking about some of the chaos and tumult in the community. And then they also talked about youth in the opposite way, that they are our future, as many of us say, that they are not only potential leaders, but could be real, strong, powerful leaders in the present moment. So they talked about them as huge assets in the community, and really wanting to nurture and give even more life to them. So one resident said, if we don't engage and work with young people to give them some additional perspectives, we are doomed to continue down this road of violence. It is people coming together to support our youth in their education and let them have ownership of their community. So this sentiment really speaks to both the leadership, the negativity, and the potential, all in one, with one resident quote. And so this was not just about education. It was not just about programming. It was really about rebuilding the village. People who have lived here for 40, 50 years talked about when they first moved into the community, it was one where they really felt the care from other neighbors. They when they were children living in the community, the neighbors knew them. They looked out for them. If they got in trouble at school, like, the neighbors would be talking about it. And so they talked about, like, the cohesion that they felt as a child, the care across the community that they felt as a child. And they also talked about that dwindling over time. And they really wanted the community to gather around the youth, to uplift the youth, to nurture the youth in every way. And when we were analyzing the data, education had come out a lot. And so when we brought it back to the community and had collective analysis of the stories, of experience, insights, the community really saw that no, it's not centered around education. It's centered around the holistic well-being and holistic resources around young people and their leadership. And so they renamed it Youth Essentials, so that we are looking at not only the way that we approach youth, but we see youth as strengths, as assets, and really thinking about that ecosystem around young people. The second piece was community safety. And so there were various ways that people saw this. It's okay. So some people really leaned into police. Other people leaned totally away from police. Almost every person that we talked to, of the 150 people, brought up violence in some way, whether they witnessed it, whether they directly experienced it, whether they had been involved in it in some way. So this was a major priority area for people, and experience. As we know, right? This is this is nothing new. We already have this on the table as a big priority area. Some of the ways that they colored this in more was leading into healing and connection, and really wanting to form an interconnected network system that was community led, and so much on police, like police, but also didn't lean in that the community residents were the ones, or should be the ones, to lead the efforts around safety and peace in the neighborhood. So one person said, I don't feel like gangs are all bad. And this is also speaking to the assets that people saw, like within the young people too. So I don't feel like gangs are all bad. Hire them, give them a job, give them a sense of pride. They could do something positive. Let's have them protect our communities. Let's come together. So this is really leaning into like creating that interdependence, and leaning into community leadership and the resident leadership of safety in the neighborhood. Economic vitality came up as well. And again, we're going to talk about like the intersection of the quality of life plan goals too. Here, it was also about like the dollar circulating within the neighborhood and how much of that can we keep in the neighborhood and not have that dollar leaving the neighborhood. So really having a self-sustained neighborhood economy. And one person said, I think I think what's going to always be important, pandemic or no pandemic, is community-centered economic development. What I mean by that are people who live in the community actually starting businesses and making those things work. And so we already know that this is part of our goal around locally owned businesses. And where this got colored in some more in people's stories was a cooperative economic approach to the community development. And so people, and I can even speak to my longtime mentor, Stafford Hood, who grew up in Auburn Gresham. And when he was growing up on the block, on his particular block, they had a school, they had a bakery, somebody had a barbershop in their basement. They were able to walk to everything that they needed. They didn't really even have to live their like a little like four block sector. And that's kind of like what they were uplifting as far as like that cooperative economy, and how can we tap into that? And while jobs came up, the priority wasn't around jobs specifically. It was more so around entrepreneurship, around training, education, and also like vocation. So people didn't just want a job; they wanted to like do something that they were passionate about, do something that they felt like they had talent in. Just thinking about one 19-year-old who recently came to the community about 3 years ago. He talked about wanting to grow a successful business, but really centered around his art. So he does like graphic design and fashion design, and he really wanted to be poured into in that way so he could grow. And so job was like, he wasn't satisfied with just job. He was like, how can I really like grow my talent, grow my passion, and eventually give back to my community? And then the fourth was around community care. And this was also heard and said in many different ways in community. Like I said before, people who have lived here for decades talk about how they had this feeling of cohesion, of deep cohesion, of interdependence, of strong care in the neighborhood. And that has worn away with different federal and city level policies interfering in community. And those are also, spelled out more in the report. We don't have time to get into everything today, but encourage you to jump into that because it's really, really interesting for advocacy purposes too. But they talked about the care that they once felt and really wanting to deepen into care again, wanting neighbors to care about each other, wanting people to care about the community, to care about the houses, the buildings, the yards, the children, of course. So one person said, let's go back to the way it used to be, where families care about one another, try to keep children out of so much crime and know where your children are, help other people. I contribute if they need anything or ask me anything. This was one of the things that really impressed me about talking to many of the people, was just this strong sense of altruism. And it was amazing when people asked people about like their wildest dreams for themselves. A lot of people talked about what they want to do for the community. Like, I really want to write a book that uplifts the youth. I really want to start a residence for people that are suffering from drug addiction. Like, there are so many ways that people said that they wanted to use their talents and passions to give back and to help the community. And that was the dream for their life. So that's just a huge strength that came out in the process. The fifth was extended family. Family, of course, was probably the main source of joy for people. So the main source of joy and fulfillment for people. So one person says, I think that family determines or helps to determine who you are and what you are. It's a group of people who don't have to pretend. You don't have to pretend with. It's a group of people you can usually be yourself with. Again, of course, when talking about our community, it's not just about blood relatives, right? It's about your chosen kin. And so that came up, like, how can we create family on the block, right? How can we create that sense of kinship throughout the neighborhood? And how can we use that sense of family to heal and to contribute to people's well-being? And so they linked extended family to physical health as well. And then finally, governance and leadership. So there was a strong sense of people wanting to own the community, physically own the community. Carlos brought this up yesterday in a meeting where now a lot of the development is like kind of centered on that idea of community ownership. And so that's what came out strong as well. Like, people wanted to own the buildings, wanted to own the land, wanted to own the houses. Like, so really turning a lot of the community into like resident owned property. And this was especially relevant in some of the people bringing up the fact that there are corporations that own houses or own buildings here. Some of those might be vacant, like, so that there's problems that are caused by some of the companies that own the property here. And so really wanting to shift that dynamic in those ways too. And they wanted this to be truly resident led. So how is the community, what kind of structures do we have for community residents to make the decisions, to self-determine what happens in the community, how it happens, all of that. So one person says, we have community meetings for new businesses coming in to keep the community involved, to see whether we think it will fit into our way of living. We put some pretty tough questions to them and let them know about our neighborhood. So we have like these sparks of places where residents are making decisions. They really wanted to amplify that so that they have true self-governance. So just wanted to look at some of the intersecting ways, and then some of the ways that people's stories could even like inform what happens moving forward with our task forces. So with Youth Essentials, we have some here in the quality of life plan, some focus on like the parent cafes, the schools, the programming, and people also wanted there to be a strong sense of mentorship throughout the neighborhood. So not just mentorship programs, but like, how are neighbors mentoring the youth on their block? How are people like changing their mindsets to really be interdependent in that way? For us to have like a kind of like a cultural shift, because thinking about Sankofa, like, what have we done before, reviving that, bringing that back, bringing those cultural strengths back, and I think we're in this room that's just so beautiful. The Dinkra symbols, right, where it's such in the right place, the mind frame, and just really uplifting that. For community safety, so really leaning into like the peace building by residents and healing centered safety practices. So how residents on the block leading safety practices on their block or in local ways, with the community vitality. really leaning into
July 14th.
entrepreneurship, community
July 6th.
purpose.
July
Also
14th.
just making sure that like not only do people have jobs, but that they have that sense of purpose and talent that's living through their opportunities. And one thing I want to highlight too is then this is from the Leo youth. So the boys who live in the neighborhood that go to Leo, we came together in a focus group, and they brought up generational wealth as something that they wanted to grow, and they wanted to lean into and say, okay, why generational wealth? And they were like, well, I just want my mom to be happy. Like I want my family to stay connected, for us to still live next to each other on the block. And, like the money for them, it wasn't just stopping at the money. It was really about this sense of freedom and peace and connectedness, right? And so how can we connect all of the things that we're doing with economic vitality with the sense of family and connection and uplifting that generationally? The community care that was also leaning into a holistic sense of health, so emotional wellness. They also brought up the sense of like beauty and celebration connected to it. So really seeing that in every way for the mind, body, spirit for each person, but also for the family, and what does it mean to have health in community and people to really living into that. So we have like some beautiful murals, like how can we expand that and even living more into mutual aid structures. And then extended family, that came up. I think it kind of is like a cross sector dynamic, but how can we really support kinship in the neighborhood, and then with the governance, and this is across sectors too, and showing up in our network as well. But how can we uplift more community ownership, decision making power, and self governance with residents specifically?
The main theme, as echoed through the findings of this report, is that residents' voices bring it to life, meaning the power resides within the community, the power resides within the residents. There is no system outside of the community that can give the community what it needs. And can you bring, which one? Can you go back? I want to read some of the quotes. Oh, yep. And some of the interviews, these are specific quotes from residents within the community. Let them have ownership of their community, clearly putting hands back into the power of the people. Hire them, let's have them protect our communities. Now, this specific quote came from a question regarding gang members. And this particular individual's idea was to look at, provide positive opportunities for gang members. So there are no longer gang members. Family who you don't have to pretend with, a sort of authenticity that comes with really bonding with individuals who you live and share space with. We lead the process. We ask the hard questions, holding each other and self-accountability. Their stories just don't support the plan. They fill in its soul. So this is being built up from the ground up by residents who are being directly affected. So one of the questions that was asked in the CRCT report, specifically to community members, was how do we build what we need? And 3 bullet points came from that. Residents and stakeholders co-create new systems. So that's getting rid of or unlearning everything that we've learned about how to live and taking what we need or creating what we need together. These systems reflects the community's values, strengths, and lived experiences. So it's not just something that you're chopping off, that you're checking off of a list. These are authentic ideas that people can connect with. And it isn't just about programs, it's about using collective power to transform. So it's really just building from the ground up. So it's a call to action. So if you are a parent, mentor a child that isn't your own. If you are a business owner, invest in your block just as much as you may invest in stock. If you are an elder, pass down your wisdom. If you are young, step into your power. Every one of us has a role to play. And these were call to actions that directly came from the community members.
And so we're just gonna end this with the vision that came through the people's stories. So they really leaned into Auburn Gresham being a beautiful, flourishing village. People talked historically about there being canopy streets, and beautiful buildings. So they talked about the beauty. They really wanted to like uplift that beauty again. We care for each other, our neighbors, our children, youth, our streets, our yards, our houses and buildings. We're an abundant community where relationships, resources, money, and skills flow through our homes. We own the community and we determine our present and future. So just want to invite you, because most of you are probably already members of your task forces. We are going to talk a little bit about the youth task force, and we started integrating the innovation process into the process of the youth task force. But our next step is to support through innovation, because part of what is being called into manifestation moving forward are these new systems and structures. Some of the systems that we have, or many of the systems that we have now, from their root, were not made for us, right? They're not made for our well-being. They're not made for our flourishing. And a lot of them were made for the opposite. And so part of what's required in this comprehensive strategy, right? There's a role for everyone and every entity. And part of what's being called for is our new systems that are made, designed, and ran by community. So the innovation group is a process for creating these new systems with community. So can join an innovation group. We are Become is offering our services, our process to the top 4 priorities. So we've already started, thankfully, and you'll hear more, like I said, with the youth task force. We're starting with the also going to support safety task force, health and care. So we are, that's something that we're providing, investing in. And if you have any questions, please reach out to me. And we can open up for any questions if we have time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I will also be sending out a copy of the report to everyone, so you all have that as well. I do see that Valerie Goodlow has her hand raised. If anyone else has a question, feel free to put it on the chat or raise your hand. Valerie, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
You know, I was just listening to the to this young lady, and I say young lady because it shows that you don't have to be an old person to have good ideas and be innovative. And one of the things that really was clear when she was saying is that we've been hearing for the past few years that young people don't want to listen to older people; they want to do their own thing. But it was clear from the conversation that young people are still willing to learn. And, you know, and it has to go both ways. We had to be willing to learn from the young people. One of the things that I wanted, and I don't know if this is a question or a statement more, is we're going to have an 8-piece series in the Black on Black Left Community Garden, open to all, young and old. It's a docuseries about what happens from the moment the bullet leaves the gun to what can we do as a community. And I think with the peace circles and trauma circles and all the other circles that we're going to have in the garden, it will address all the things that need to be addressed. And one of the things that I heard of is parent participation, things that we have to do on our block to ensure that the neighbor next door who has a child, that we're able to reach out to them like we did back in the day. So I'm really liking what the young people are talking about. And if there's any way that I can help, I'm all on board. So that's what I want to say.
Thank you, Valerie. Valerie Goodlow. We appreciate that. Is there any other questions or comments that anyone else wanted to share? Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you so much, you ladies, for all the work that you guys are doing and for this amazing report. We'll be sure to share it to all partners. We do have Carlos Nelson here. So before we transition over to the Youth and Education Task Force, did you want to share any last words or anything?
We just had a question for the transition.
Yeah.
Yeah. But it could become before or after, Carlos.
Yeah. And then we also actually have Crystal who just raised her hand. Crystal, feel free to unmute yourself and ask your question.
Yeah, this is for Sister, was it Goodlow, who spoke to the Black on Black Community Garden? I think she mentioned something about an 8-part event or something. When does that start? And I'd love to come and participate.
It's going to start July 14th, every Monday night from the circles will start like from 7 to 8, and then the screening of the film. And we'd love any participation. Anybody wants to help sponsor maybe one of the screenings, I'm open to anything. We'll probably, it'll be a nice event. We'll have food and stuff like that in the opening of it. And then we'll have a peace circle addressing the issues in the community. And then we'll have a screening of the series, one of the series each week,
And
July 14th.
feel free to send out the flyer, email the flyer over to me, and I'll be more than happy to share out with everyone as well.
I got to make it.
Okay, no worries, no worries.
So until you make it, so I can put it on my calendar, where is the garden located?
8616 South Carpenter Street, and it's July 14th.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. And you can send me your information, put your information in there so I could maybe call you.
Great. All right, we have a few words from our CEO, Carlos Nelson.
Great. Good afternoon, everyone. And as we switch here in the studio, we had a few adjustments that we're going to make. I just really wanted to give a shout out to our Auburn Gresham Neighborhood Network Program Manager, Yerendi Centron. I love the way that today's agenda is laid out. Yerendi, supported by Norma Sanders, who is the Director of Special Initiatives, and of course, our wonderful Khalila Muhammad, who's the Special Advisor to the Auburn Gresham Neighborhood Network. So thinking about the way this agenda is laid out, having speak to the CRCT report. And by the way, that report is available in print. I'm sure Become can send that to you upon your request. I heard so many magical words in that report, and it makes me reflect upon the fact that we're in this studio, this digital media center here in the lower suites of the Auburn Gresham Healthy Lifestyle Hub. It is nicknamed the Echo Podcast Center, and it's full of art, and it's full of reflection, and it's full of Adinkra symbols that tie us back to our ancestors. Adinkra symbols are a West African hieroglyphic language that really has symbols that speak to just about everything you heard from Become. The symbolism here in Auburn Gresham, and so we've kind of co-opted this whole Adinkra symbols to speak to what the Auburn Gresham movement around community engagement is all about. So if you're here in Auburn Gresham, you'll see Adinkra symbols embedded in the sidewalks. You'll see them on our panels, panels, billboards, flags, etc. And so, we're a firm believer that if we all lived by the symbols, the Adinkra symbols, this place would be a much better place for all of us. The other thing that I love is that we're going to hear from the Youth and Education Task Force, followed by the Space to Grow. Now, these are all very important, deeply aligned partnerships that have coexisted and long existed here in the Auburn Gresham community. In fact, community engagement has become the theme of the work here in the Auburn Gresham community, Space to Grow. You'll hear from Kenneth Varner, who's been a partner of ours now here in Auburn Gresham for a number of years, doing great work across the city, become deeply rooted in the Auburn Gresham community. I remember meeting Dominica back in, I think, 2011, and the fact that though they do work all over Chicagoland, they're a part of our Auburn Gresham neighborhood network, and under the leadership of Yerendi and supported by Norma and Kalila, you know, our work is really a work built on community engagement, community wealth, and always growing Auburn Gresham. So I just wanted to say, you know, thank you to all who are participants in the Auburn Gresham Neighborhood Network. I think we are modeling across the United Way footprint in Metro Chicago how neighborhood networks should be led, should be fostered, should be promoted, and are really about ground up in giving our voice to our partners and voices to the community. And remember, your voice matters, which was the name of our quality of life plan. I'm Carlos Nelson, CEO here at Greater Auburn Gresham Development Corporation. I'll give it back to Yerendi Centron, and then we'll hear from our Youth and Education Task Force. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Carlos. Thank you so much. And I do see the chat that the mic levels are a little low. So Eric's working on that. So we will now hear from our Youth and Education Task Force, but I do believe they have something they would like for us to participate in. So I'm going to hand it off to Dr. Carol Collum and Dominica.
We're actually going to start off with Monique.
Yeah, so we have Monique joining us virtually. Monique, feel free to unmute yourself and join.
Yes, hello, good afternoon, everyone. Coming in from Lewistown, Illinois. So actually we'll get into it, but we have definitely, you know, increased the engagement with our youth voice and choice over the years, and something that actually led to one of the partnerships through actually our accelerator fund. We were offered some slots for an away camp, and so I got to take 9 8th graders to Lewistown, Illinois for 5 days, and so we are out here roughing it in the woods. And so if my connection skips or changes anything, just to let you know, give me that grace in that. But it's just really exciting to see them. And actually, I started my first summer camp with GAGC was in 2018. And actually some of those 2nd and 3rd graders, when we were only K through 3rd in that summer camp, are now these 8th graders. So it's almost that rites of passage, you know, seeing them and being able to, you know, provide them with that opportunity. But I'll start us over the slides. You load those up. There we go. All right. And so, like Mr. Nelson said, Auburn Gresham, your voice matters. And so we're starting this one with Back to the Blueprint, Revitalizing the 2016 Vision Through Action. All right, so you might not be able to see, but if you've had a chance to visit the Quality of Life Plan, or you have that, definitely check it out. And so in 2016, it started off with knowing that, you know, youth were one of the greatest assets in Auburn Gresham. In 2016, Simeon and Scott Joplin had made it to level 1, and then Cook and Westcott will follow them not too much later in 2018 to that level 1. We also knew that 83% of our adults had high school diplomas or higher. And so we wanted to really figure out, you know, how to not only support the parent and the child, but how do we also, you know, respond to the children and families' changing needs. And so some of the strategies were to meet or exceed citywide averages. So those test scores in math and reading. We also knew that we had high mobility rates. And so we had, you know, families moving out of Auburn Gresham, families moving into Auburn Gresham that also affected, you know, not only engagement within the schools, but also within the community. And so knowing that, how do we support and also push in with that social emotional healing models? And so going to our vision, in 2016, we envisioned our youth Oh, no, stay on that one for me, please. Thank you. And so we envision our youth realizing their potential through cultivation and realization of their own values and returning to populate a new and younger generation of lifelong learners. And so we already know this word of self-sustaining. We also wanted to put that into, the youth and education as well. And also, some of the first youth groups actually mentioned in the Quality Life Plan were Brave Youth. And so they're the violence prevention program that had weekly meetings and, really leaned into that youth leadership. So if you had a youth that were, maybe just moved into community, Brave was one of the first youth leaderships in that Quality of Life Plan to, take on that task of working with them on that leadership and really getting that voice out there, because their voice matters as well. And we really wanted that to be reflected. And so, and then going on to some of those strategies that were outlined, we wanted to, strategy 1 was to improve neighborhood schools and provide access to highly trained, culturally competent urban educators. Strategy 2, we wanted to support traditional and non-traditional ways of education. And then we wanted to expand and maintain that community schools model. So knowing that the schools, can't do it alone and shouldn't do it alone, we wanted to bring, how do you, intersect community into those schools? How do we know if you're safe here, how do you feel safe, in your community? And we keep that round circle going. And some of those goals, so in 2016, so we were already citing, and so by 2021, we wanted each school to have an on-site behavior specialist. We also wanted health satellite services, which actually happened in Cook, as well as Perspectives Charter School when they were on May. We also wanted high quality out of school time. And so that's, after school programs, before school programs, summer programs. And so that actually came to fruition when we also applied for the 21st Century funding, which allowed us to do out of school time with the AG Gold schools. And then also by 2021, we wanted summer enrichment camps. And as I stated earlier, I'm actually, I joined in 2017, the organization. And so this will actually be my 8th summer camp. And so I think they first started in 2016, I believe, but I'm going on my 8th one. So that was something that also, were in fruition. And then we also wanted a garden and a playground, at each of those schools. And so I know we've been moving. I think everyone has a garden now. And then we're still working on the playground. So I'm gonna leave that open because there's spacing, and I think that will come up later. But we are looking to also, acquire another playground with one of our gold schools. So a lot of the schools had, concrete and just, different things. So we had to get creative with, having them a space to, have swings and slides and, the new age tire swings, which are great, has been very well. Also, too, so we wanted 80% of our pre-K to 3rd grade to read at or above grade level. And so actually what moved on forward, they actually started to move the age to 2nd grade. And so we can see this momentum, that we cited it in 2016 going all the way up to, when we go to 2019, because we'll get to 2020, that we were, hitting these targets. We were moving, we were mobilized as a community. And then, our mobility rate was high. So we wanted to decrease that. So we wanted to be at or below that district average. So we wanted to keep our students and their families, in their homes. How do you make quality neighborhood schools? How do you feel safe in your community where you're not moving around, a lot? Where you're working on home ownership, so you're staying in that place and, growing and aging in place. And so, moving, momentum going, meetings, and 2020 hit, not only did it shock, the whole world, but it also, hit the task force as well. And so we all kind of went into our different respective spaces. We still, moving on programming and the different things, but the information started to get a little less. We didn't hear as much, coming out. We weren't collaborating as much as we, could have or been in those spaces. And so 2020 kind of had a mix coming out of 2020. We're starting to get back, starting to figure out, hybrid, meetings and different things. How can we engage in this new environment? Also, just moving out of 2020, how do we get back to that? And then just thinking about from 2016 to 2020, the different changes that happened. And so in 2023, we had a catalyst moment. And so we were grateful to have been funded by My Shot, My Future, which was a youth initiative by the mayor to engage youth with opportunities, increase their youth voice and choice, let their neighborhoods reflect their not only, their ideas, but what else to support them, what the people that support them, whether that be caring adults, organizations, schools, how can, we push in? And so this really gave us the blueprint to start from. Well, the quality of life plan really gave us the blueprint to start with this My Shine, My Future and focus in on. And so with the latest version of the quality of life plan published in 2016 and the education and youth development section being highlighted for youth needs, programs and mentorships and educational support, we fast forward to 2023, where our youth and our young adults have experienced not only one, but two Chicago public school strikes, and then also the pandemic. And so if we, in 2016, we're already identifying that we needed programs, mentorships, and education, you can imagine in 2023, that's needed more than ever. And so when we actually started with the My Shy, we started with monthly meetings. And it was just refreshing to have, that first meeting, of youth serving organizations come, so getting out of those silos, it was healing in a way to reflect in a room full of youth workers on how strategies outlined in 2016 can not only be revitalized to fit the current state, but talk about the changes, talk about the challenges. And then I think it also, gave us a space to connect. And so not only, hey, I'm having trouble, keeping 10 students in this program, and having people get to come off a mute and say, hey, have you tried this, or I'm experiencing the same thing. It put back in that connection, that human aspect. And so now moving to 2025, back on that momentum, it's allowed us to. We also have, as Dominica said, you talked about the innovation group, we'll get into a little more, but we expanded our branches. So knowing, okay, monthly meetings for us to connect, but how do we also, engage? And so we got other branches for engagement. So maybe you're not able to attend the monthly meetings, but you have different ways to engage, with the network. We also, took the blueprint from Brave Youth as well, open up a space, for those youth to come. We call it the Youth and Young Adult Council. So, where their voices can be reflected, where we're asking them, hey, what do you want in the community and how can we help you do that? And then also that cross-sector alignment. And so getting to meet with the other task force leads or just the other task force and seeing, hey, this aligns with health and wellness or housing, housing and economic, and being able to collaborate. So not only are we focusing in on the youth, but we're focusing on the whole family and the whole community. And especially with that funding, we got to pilot some programs. We actually got to put some fire under, under the thoughts and actually get some movement going. We did events together, we were doing programs, all types of things. And so, and actually you can see our logo, our draft of our logo going. Okay, next slide, please. And so a little bit about My Shy, which was the flame that reignited us back after 2020. And so what is it? It was working together to address common challenges and improve services for youth and young adults in the community. And so because we had the blueprint, we knew what those challenges were, but we also, needed to figure out what changed within those. And so by exploring collaborations, opportunities, and initiatives, with needs assessment and creating spaces to discuss those. And so with My Shy, they went to the 15 community regions, and we are the Auburn Gresham team. And then how do they want us to do it? So they wanted us to activate and convene a network of caring adults. So not only, organizations, but this can be the neighbor. This can be, those people where they hang out. So we want to see where youth are spending their time. Who do they feel safe around? And then we wanted to strengthen that. And so we already know we were in our silos. And so how do we bring us back, to the table and let you know that you have the support in order to strengthen that ecosystem? So now off the top of your head, I can go over to, or I can recommend, this youth over to Stay Lit because I know their services or, those different things. And then we want to connect youth to those opportunities that center their voice. So not only, boom, I'm going to, connect you with here, but here you have the advocacy and the agency. We're going to learn that, to push what, you need through. Next slide, please. And so definitely if you're going through the quality of life plan, I talked about the 3 strategies, but under there were subcategories. And so I want to say maybe it's a good pen in there. And so I wanted to, focus in on that 4. So it's 2023, what 4, after everything do we want to work on? And so as a task force, we chose for 2.1 to create a community learning center, 2.5 to partner with organizations, agencies, and community events and programs, 3.3, and you'll hear a little more about developing and expanding parent cafes. And then 3.4, we also wanted to create youth cafes as well. All right, next slide, please. And so couldn't hit the ground running without knowing, what the youth wanted themselves. We started with a needs assessment, real simple, just asking, what are your top areas of interest and their age? And so I would say you might can't see, but I did put them. Okay. But yeah, so most of the participants that took the survey in 2023 were 14 to 16. You see our 17 to 19, we have 20 to 22, and then our 23 to 25-year-olds. And out of that, I want to say it was about 50 plus that took that survey. Mental health actually came up as one of the top at 60%, education at 52%, say economic development at 37%, community engagement at 47%, and healthcare at 43%. And so this really, and the next slide, please. So if they tell us what we want, we got to get with their interests. So you can see how much the Spice Girls, because if they tell us, we just got to get with them and try to see how that mixes. And so on top of asking their interests, we asked, would you like to attend events around those specific topics? And you can see 72% of them said yes. 25% were maybe, they had to look, maybe they needed a little more details, and maybe the no's, just needed a little more encouragement. And then the second question we asked them were, okay, would you want to be in a working group that puts on these type of events around these topics? And you can see that actually increased. And so 85% said yes, and 14%, need a little more encouragement as well. But what that shows here is that the youth want to be engaged. They want to be a part of not only, taking in the information that they said were their top areas of interest, but they want to be a part of it. They want to push it out to their peers. They want to be right in the action. And so you can see our needs assessment that we put out at different places. And this is what we got back. And so from our Youth and Young Adult Council, we thought, hey, we have you in the room. Let's go through fall, winter, and the next event, that we can have in a space. And so they met, they got to, have little snacks with each other. And then we talked about, what in our community, could we have? And so actually through My Shine, My Future, they have a spring break initiative where they actually have a team bash down in Navy Pier. And so we got the opportunity to take a few youth down to that event. They loved it. And then they said, man, how do we bring, something like that to our community? And so thankfully we have and actually that's coming up too, our 79 Renaissance Festival. And that was the perfect space to allow them to actually see, their dreams and their things that they wanted turn into fruition. And so when we see Team Bash, that'd be the first one. Those were the things that they said they wanted in that space, and we actually brought it to them. And so they had, henna tattoo. There was a glam bus, and instead there was a game bus in the area. But we also partnered with CYDI, and they have an engineering studio bus. And so adding in a little teaching in there and just different things. They wanted the basketball court. They wanted to have live events, which Music Box led. And then it also turned into, an open mic style. We had a graffiti wall, and you can see those pictures. So actually, we had an artist, Joshua Centron, actually, started with the blueprint of the drawing, and he was out there, all day while the teen corner was open, teaching them how to graffiti, but also the history of graffiti. I didn't know that graffiti, the spray can actually was first produced in Chicago. And so it was hitting us with facts, along with that. And so we actually have a practice wall. And so they got to do, their own thing. And so it was just real fun, real engaging. And then in fall, so we wanted to ask, hey, what did you want to do in fall and winter? Because we know those months gets a little colder. We know the connection changes a little bit. And so we want to keep you engaged, because that is what we found, with talking to the youth serving organizations, that retention was one of our challenges across the board. we have youth, but sometimes, they leave, they're here for a moment. So how are we keeping them engaged? Whether they're at your program, this program, but how are we keeping them engaged in community? And so really wanted to push through the end of the year to make sure we had these things going. We kind of knew what they wanted because they put it right on the plate. And so we would bring these to the youth servant organizations and talk about how can we, incorporate not only the things that they want to have, but also those needs assessments. So we've seen mental health was big. We've seen education was in there, health and wellness. And so how do we incorporate those things within those events by also, lending their voice to and including them in that process? Next slide, please. Click it again. I think something's going to come up. Yes. And so with those monthly meetings, we started in 2023 with who's in the room. But moving into 2024, we started to see the momentum move. We wanted to know who's at the table. So not just in the room, who was pulling up the chair and, and saying, hey, I have this asset going on. I have this, and I can share sugar to your Kool-Aid. But, those things, a little joke there. But, just really, lending that connection, really wanted to, not only build camaraderie with the youth serving organizations, but also with the youth themselves. So we wanted to, asset map who was coming to the table. Next slide, please. And so talked about those layer of engagement. And so you can see you are here at the neighborhood network partner. So we put that at the top of our umbrella. And then we have our youth network. And so we meet like this, mostly virtual, because we know with the mobility and different and the time, because it happens from 4 to 5:30. But we have those monthly. We'll actually be taking a break in July, but we'll be coming back in August. So stay tuned if you'd like to join those, and you'll hear a little bit about how we've been moving. We have our innovation group, and so Dominica spoke about that a little earlier, and she'll get into it more. But they meet bi-weekly to go into and focus on those strategies. How are we building those systems that provide that community learning and those opportunities? And then we have our youth and young adult councils, so supporting those 14 to 25-year-olds. Again, having them meet. Sometimes we do push-ins with schools because we find sometimes, the challenge is getting them to our spaces. And so if we make those school partnerships, we'll go to you and have lunch and learns. We'll talk about how to create a successful community event. Who should we include? And, and push in. So just to make sure not only is your voice heard throughout the community, but we advocate with you in the school if we're let in. Next slide, please. And so we talked about, those different events and programs that we were able to have and, and pilot. And so knowing that mental health was one of the top concerns, and in that 14 to 16 range, we needed to dive a little deeper. So what in mental health? What about it? What better supports could we use? So yes, we are understanding this, but how can we, push around so we lower those numbers? And so we put on a collaborative. We thought about Thankstoberfest. And so we thought about that November-ish time. So again, that fall, they're back in school. It starts to get a little colder. Family, Thanksgiving starts to happen. But how do you create community and family? How do you create family connection, in community? And then also putting that focus. And so Thankstoberfest was the idea that came from the task force. We had it on November 16th. And some of the strategies we wanted to do with that event was not only have fun and some great food. I think, who did we get? I think we had Morrison's. So also, supporting the businesses in the neighborhood. So Morrison's provided the food. And so around that, we also wanted to increase awareness of our resources around mental health. And so once we figure out, hey, is it grief? Is it vicarious trauma? Is it something that may have, different things? But we wanted to increase those resources regardless of what you were experiencing. We wanted to have, all different types of options there. We also want to address the negative stereotypes of mental health so that youth and families are more comfortable accessing resources. So knowing that, after 2020 and just in general, we all, can use a little more self-care and these different things. So we wanted to kind of break down that wall of saying, hey, I need a little help. And so just having, people in the space. So we had a charrette, I would say. So that was people that got to do choir. We had actually youth that facilitated teen mental health. first aid. And so they actually had youth up there, doing a presentation about, hey, if your friend may be experiencing this, here are some steps that you can take. And then also, opening up the door to say, hey, and if you want to get certified in this, so you're, more equipped to help your friends and just to learn more about how maybe you can, use some of these strategies, they opened that door for that invite as well. And so that peer interaction was great. And then also increasing the skills in dealing with mental health. So yes, I know I may have this, but what else can, what outlets may I have? What other resources can I do? Are there other groups that we can join? And so really, putting that together in a whole community event. And we had a great time. As you can see, we had board games. And so really tried to, bring in that holiday feel as we still, talked about these strategies and put in those places that we were talking about. Next slide, please. And then just from that My Shine, My Future. And so we were a part of these 2024 highlights. And so, thank you. Yes, I'm going to say 2024 highlights. And so in 2024, altogether, those 15 community regions we were a part of were the 140 monthly stakeholder convenings. We were a part of 66 community events that engaged over 20,000 residents. And we also created a final community plan that represented what that needs assessment did and the strategies that we did to work with it. Next slide. And then I'll pass it over to Dominica to talk about what 2025 held for us, where we started.
All right. So we're going to go into a little bit into the end of 2024, going into 2025. So we came together as to form the 3 layers of the structure in about a year ago, actually, in like July or August of 2024. And then we formed the structure, the MOU, and we began to create the plan or add to the plan moving forward. And then we launched in October, we launched the innovation group. And so the innovation group is developing a system of social development around youth, which is really exciting because that doesn't necessarily exist, right? We have a system for education, a system for criminal legal system, the criminal legal piece, or transportation, but they decided that they're going to create something new and launch or design and launch a system of social development. But even in that process, before they got there, they visioned and created a much longer vision that's here, but we pulled out a piece of what they created, which is that they envision a world where every young person in Auburn Gresham is free to be their truest self, grounded in purpose, courage, love, and culture, or joy and culture. In this community, youth are not only encouraged to explore their potential, but are supported in fully realizing it, unleashing boundless creativity that fuels both individual and collective transformation. And then with all of the layers, we created the mission to create an environment where youth in the community can connect them to the resources needed for them to aspire and achieve their dreams. And what we're doing in every layer is dedicated to their leadership, youth leadership, providing those services, and developing community-driven solutions that support young people in reaching their full potential. And so in the process, in both the youth network meetings and the innovation meetings, we've deepened into the different areas, like Monica already talked about mental health. We've also launched the parent and youth cafes, which have included joy, thriving. The next one is going to be on environment. And so we've had varying degrees of success. Every conversation, every event has been rich, but we wish more people would have come. So now we're going to be taking it to the young people. So our next cafe is going to be at the Maker Fair with Jackie, the robotics lady, and her initiative for young people. So that's going to be Friday, August 1st. So we're going to be the youth cafe there. But as part of that is really gone into what realizing this idea of community actualization, where community, everyone in the community is oriented towards every person really like living into their gifts, talents, dreams, and full potential. So we wanted to kind of like steer away from the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, going just focus on the individual and really lean into the collective and community. So we dove into conversations around community actualization. Okay. I will hurry up then. So we also decided when January hit and the new administration started doing their thing, we, of course, wanted to anticipate the detrimental impact that it would have for young people, their families, and our community. So as part of that, we decided that we wanted to do a community-led research initiative focused around what those new and exacerbated needs are and connecting people to resources. So the using this as a way to lean in, to understand what's happening, to make sure we can respond, and then aggregate that data so that we can respond as a collective as well. So that's part of what led to this. What you're seeing on the screen now is polling around the questions that we wanted to ask and to lead the research initiative, and which led to really diving into like what are the sociopolitical realities for people? How have these cuts affected their life? And the support that they might need or might want now. We also wanted to lean into the future and focus on how they're navigating and engaging in real time. So I will actually skip over some of the pieces just due to time. Voted on the methodology, and then now have a youth network data toolkit, which pools different elements. It includes a guide, it includes survey, focus group, protocol for young people and the network and others to collect data. So we're going to be launching that soon and actually putting that into place. So I'll pass over to you.
Okay. No, thank you so much. And yes, we are pressed for time. However, we have had several traumatic events that has really brought the collective together to just share hope and love and unity. And we saw that there would be something to possibly leverage for these particular traumatic events, but to still reference this sense of hope that we hope to represent all the time through our work. And so we thought about a rapid response activation because of these traumatic events that happen. We wanted to find out what would it take to rapidly activate these assets in a moment of urgent youth need. For example, you all saw on the news, we had the 7 youth who had gotten shot over by St. Sabina Church. We thought instantly, what could we do as a collective to respond to traumatic events that affect and impact our young people? And here were a series of questions, who would we need to call? And what would we be able to do within those first 48 hours? So this is the call to action for the network. Who are our key point people? And what are the roles that they play within the network or within the community in general? What are the resources that are immediately deployable whenever we have an urgent need? What scenarios are we responding to the most? And these are just some key questions to help us think about a call to action so that we can be responsible for responding to our neighborhood, our children, our young people that we service right here through the Auburn Gresham Neighborhood Network. And so again, for the sake of time, I realize we may not be able to do this now, but let's think about that so that we can identify people who are in these key roles. And so how can we gather that real-time data and engage as a rapid response collective? Right? We want us to really think about that. And here's, of course, some additional upcoming events that are awesome. Thank you for sending those in, because we do highlight that across the community. And you can continue going. We absolutely don't have time to go through each one of these slides, but you can see it's a wealth of information for our young people in the community. Please send in your information so that we can highlight what's going on. You do realize when you send that, again, we're sharing all this information across the entire network. So that means that everyone gets highlighted for all of the wonderful work that you are doing. Yeah, and again, employment resources. We have programming that's going on. Right now, we're pushing and promoting the summer camps that are going on. And so here's how you contact the network. Right? Here's how you can contribute to the ideas that were presented today. This is our Google Drive, the shared Google Drive. Please click on that link, send us information. Let us know how you can plug in and be activated. This is our official call to action. Thank you.
I wish I had a button to just clap after. It was so good. Thank you guys so much. We are a little pressed on time. I know we might have questions, so if you can just put them in the chat and then we can get back to them. I do want to respect, we have another speaker. Thank you so much, Dominica and Dr. Carol and everyone thus far. So as we transition to our new speaker, which would be Kenneth from Space to Grow, there's a couple points that I did just want to quickly mention. First and foremost, highlighting what Dr. Carol Collin was talking about in regards to sharing your resources and your information, whether it's uploading them at the on the drive, emailing them to me directly, and then just sharing that word. I did also want to mention that we will be bringing back the Auburn Gresham portal. We are currently working on that, so more to come, so that we all have a calendar that we all have access to be able to see what's going on in the community. And then lastly, I did want to mention again, it's critical and it's crucial for us to speak in regards to our ideas, the work that we're doing. And so as we've been highlighting today, that your voice matters. And so making sure you're self-selecting yourself for task forces as well, to be a part of these conversations. So without further ado, we have Kenneth, and I will pass it on over to you.
Thank you very much for having me in this very beautiful space. I'm so happy and delighted to be here. Hello, everyone joining us virtually. I want to tell you a little bit about the Space to Grow program, if you are not already aware. But first, my name is Kenneth Varner. I'm the Senior Community Engagement Manager with Healthy Schools Campaign. We are a small but mighty team. You have them on your screen right now. I just wanted to acknowledge exactly who we have on our team as well. Sorry, just handling this really quickly. All right, cool. So you have, consisting on the team, you have myself, Kenneth Varner, and you have Aniansi Elizondo, Emily Zhang, and Danielle Russell. They're all integral parts of the program, so I just want to make sure that I acknowledge them. So Space to Grow was founded by Healthy Schools Campaign and Open Lands, and we receive our capital funding from Chicago Public Schools, the Department of Environment, as well as Chicago's two water agencies, which would be the Department of Water Management and the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District. You'll see why that's important in just a moment. By Healthy Schools Campaign, we believe in the common sense notion that healthy students are better learners. So we work to create healthier environments in the school system. We're making sure that children are getting those wraparound services in regards to their health, making sure they're getting breakfast every day, making sure that we're looking at that child holistically and making sure that is involved in every part of the school day. So that is our mission at Healthy Schools Campaign. And Open Lands is a conservation organization, nature conservation organization. So they want to make sure that nature is being experienced and brought to where the people are in their communities, so that we're not having to travel far out in order to experience nature. We're going to experience nature right here in our neighborhoods. So Space to Grow has three main tenets, and you can see where that comes in from the founding partners. So we have the health and wellness piece. We have the outdoor learning, so that we are helping schools take what they're doing inside their school buildings and replicating that outdoors. And then we also have that stormwater management piece. And that's where you get that funding from the 2 water districts of Chicago. So all of our schoolyards are designed to hold at least 150,000 gallons worth of water per rainstorm. So that helps reduce flooding in the neighborhood, as well as flooding in the streets, as well as reducing basement flooding in a radius around the school as well. So that is something that you can definitely be aware of if you live nearby one of these schools. It is helping keep your basements dry. All of our schoolyards are going to have certain components. We're going to have vegetable gardens that are going to be out there, community meeting spaces and like outdoor classrooms, play spaces for the young children and the slightly older kids. All of our schools that we partner with are going to be elementary schools. We're going to have rain gardens out there full of native plants that are going to help absorb a lot of that rainwater. And then we're also going to have some permeable spaces, some permeable surfaces that are going to be out there, whether that can be like permeable asphalt or permeable pavers for the parking lot, as well as even by the play equipment like that soft foam. That's all going to be absorbing water and letting the water infiltrate through it to be held and like not go into the sewer system. But we can get more into that later. So as Carlos mentioned earlier, this is a citywide program. We currently have 36 schoolyards that are open, with 5 more being breaking ground this summer, will be completed by the fall. So by the end of this year, we will have 41 schoolyards that are open. And just for those of you that are visual learners, this is kind of the way it is situated throughout the city. We primarily work with schools in disinvested communities, so that'd be on the south and west side. So in building our schoolyards, we found that it's had many benefits. So children are more active, which is kind of a common sense notion right there in itself. When you give kids something to do, they do things. A lot of the schoolyards in which we renovate just have like those asphalt fields. But when we bring in stuff, kids find more opportunities to use their imagination and play. We found that there's more positive interactions on the schoolyard, meaning there's less instances of bullying, which is something that we can expect as well. When you have opportunities for kids to get engaged in actual activities, there's less opportunity for like that negativity to flourish. And then we also have found that there's been increased community cohesion. So staff, parents, and community members have found that they have more positive interactions with each other. Because again, there's that place to where there's attractive where they can gather, and like it fosters those opportunities to have those conversations that just a black asphalt field would not allow. What I find that is the most interesting thing and one of the highlights of our program is how these schoolyards come into being. Once a school is selected, we engage in a multi-step planning process, and it's a community design process. So community is involved in every step of the way. We will start off by getting kind of doing a visioning session with the community and seeing how exactly they would like to use their space. So that is when we engage with parents and caregivers, teachers, the administration, as well as students. Everyone is surveyed throughout that process. And once we come up with that all that information, we'll give that to the designers, and they'll present two separate visionings to get the community feedback from there. And then from there, we'll decide on that final choice, make that final selection. We'll take a little bit from A, a little bit from B, and then present it back to the community again to make sure that their voices were heard and that they feel like that is something that they can get behind. And we do this because each of these schoolyards are intended to be utilized by the community outside of school hours. So yes, it is housed on CPS land, but these are community parks that are available to everyone in the neighborhood. So a couple different schools that are in the Auburn Gresham neighborhood. We have Cook, that is already open. We have Westcott, that was also opened a few years ago. And one that is in the design right now is Ryder Elementary. So this is, you're looking at the schoolyard as it is now, and they have already gone through the process, just completed the process that I was just speaking about. And the final design is this, right? So that we're going to be breaking ground with Ryder this summer in the next couple weeks. And then this schoolyard will be open in the fall, hopefully in time for the new school year. So this is just going to be a little bit about what the construction looks like. This is a multi-million-dollar investment into these schoolyards. On the left, you'll see some of the chambers that we put underground to absorb a lot of that rainwater. And you'll see the schoolyard play equipment being put in on the right. This is Davis over on the southwest side. And this is going to be the before and after of that schoolyard. We're also going to have the before and after of Grissom, which is on the far southeast side. You can see the complete transformation there. And then you have Wadsworth here on close by in Woodlawn. And then here is Cook Elementary. When we were doing that, we found that a lot of the community members and students used to call that Lake Cook that you see on the left. Because once it rained, then that rainwater would sit there for days and days and days, making it unusable. But now you have the beautiful schoolyard there where there's no longer, Lake Cook has been put to rest at this point. And then this is going to be the 3D rendering of Ryder Elementary. So this is going to be what it's going to be looking like in just a few months. So why I'm really here is just to talk about the schoolyard utilization. Once we open these spaces, I want to make sure that everybody is aware that this is open for community use. It is reserved for the school use during the school day and extending into their after school programming. But in the evenings, it is open for you to use. So think about how you and your organizations may be able to utilize these spaces. Of course, as a courtesy, you would want to get engaged with the principal to make sure you're getting some clearance there. But these are spaces for the community. So are there any community events or celebrations that you want to have? There are gardening opportunities as we have these garden beds that are there, particularly for the vegetables. They utilize them during the school year, but over the summer, these spaces tend to be open and available for the community to use. And then, of course, these are just community parks for you to just go outside and take a walk. Use the walking and running track and just go outside and have a picnic and relax with friends and family. So we want to see you using these spaces as much as you like. And that would be all I have for you. So if there's any questions for me, feel free to reach out, ask now, or however you want to do it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Kenneth. Wow, beautiful pictures. I actually do have something in the chat from Dr. Sherrod. She said, Mr. Kenneth, I have been interested for more than a year to learn the process for Clara Barton Elementary School. This is a well-needed opportunity for the school. Please let me know how I can apply. And so I guess she wants to connect with you to see what that application process looks like.
Sure. And I will go briefly into the criteria. For one, schools have not received a recent capital investment. For example, like if CPS just built a new schoolyard, then we're not going to come in and dig up that schoolyard to put in something new on top of that. It has to be in a flood zone. So there has to be, which the water departments will look to see the instances of flooding in the neighborhood. So they want to invest in places where they can reduce that to help out the residents of that community. And then there's also a CPS, Chicago Public Schools Equity Index. So just to making sure that we are providing help to the schools that are in the most need. But yes, we can definitely connect, and I can tell you exactly where you fall in all of that. Once schools have been found to meet all of that criteria, they are then asked to apply for the Space to Grow program.
Awesome. Thank you.
Hey, you're Randy.
Yes.
I had a question.
Yep.
Do you work with CICS? Not you, Randy, but
You said with
Space to Grow?
CICS. Charter schools.
Oh, charter schools.
I believe no, we do not. We work with specifically Chicago public schools. I'm not sure if we do go into any charter at this point. It all depends on exactly how that works with CPS.
Awesome. Do we have any other questions that we want to ask Kenneth while he's here? Kenneth, I'm not sure if it'd be okay to share your email or best contact.
Absolutely. I have a slide here. If we want to pull that up, it has my email as well as the rest of the team. You can reach out to any of us. Reach out to myself or Emily. She is the Space to Grow project manager. But any of us will get back to you. If you happen to know any of the other team members, you can feel free to reach out to them if you already have a relationship.
Awesome. So Kenneth does have a screen there with different contact informations if anyone wants to reach out directly. And if there's no other questions, we're actually at 2:30 on the dot, which is great. I think this is a record, Eric, if I'm not mistaken. But I did just want to mention the next meeting date for AGNN will be taking place August 20th. We will have our Health and Wellness Task Force presenting. And if you have any summer activities or events, please feel free to share it out with us. Also, revisit that self-selection task force link if you have not selected a task force to sit on and engage with. But yeah, feel free to send any flyers, updates to the drive. I can also email them all to you directly. And it was so good to connect with you all virtually. Hopefully to see you guys soon in person. Thank you, Kenneth, and to all our speakers today. And until next time, everyone, have a great rest of your week and a great weekend.